We go. So hello, everyone. Good evening. This is Dr. Shiva. We have people on Instagram up, and I'm glad everyone's here. It's late a little bit. We had a long day today. As many of you know, when in our run for U.S. Senate, I'm out there meeting with volunteers, campaigning. We had a really good event today in a place called Mattapan, which is one of the central areas of Boston. It's a very important area because there's been a big discussions, a lot of African-American community from all different backgrounds. So we had a very good discussion there about real racism versus fake racism. And you can see the broadcast on my Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube if you want to look at it. But today, what we're going to be talking about in the series that we're doing on the immune system is on ginger. And what I want to do is before I talk, I want to take just a little bit of time just to share with you at a high level. I want to change the format a little bit. You know, what is ginger, basically the main takeaway points, and then we'll come back and say hello to the people who are coming in from everywhere. But a few days ago, I did the power of negative ions. As some of you may know, then I did a whole talk on garlic and then turmeric, and then we also did green tea. But today, we did onions yesterday, but today we're going to do the power of ginger. So I hope you enjoy it, because this is in a series that we really start focusing on the power of food. It's clear that the CDC or the government doesn't really give a damn about food as medicine. This has been one of the most powerful things that humanity has learned over many thousands of years in all cultures. We also recognize that the other aspect of this is that those in power really care about the almighty dollar and power, profit, and control. So everything they do is guiding a larger narrative. There's a big collusion now with the fake news media and fake science. Academia, by and large, is all about following money. It's unfortunately not about following truth. But you know, the good news is we still have access to this. I was fortunate to get educated in a lot of areas, and our commitment here is to really educate all of us and learn from each other in the power of food, and particularly the power of one of the most important systems of our body, the immune system. Because if we support the immune system, you support all other systems that come from that. So in today's talk, we're going to, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about ginger. And at a high level, what I want to share is these are the main things you're going to take away. So I thought I'd start with the main things, and then we peel back. And those of you on Instagram, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook, as well as you can go to Periscope to see the slides. The key things relative to ginger immune health is, first of all, ginger really stops inflammatory enzymes. Remember, you know, if your body, you know, let's say you hit your hand with a hammer, right? And it starts hurting, you need inflammation to make sure that the body heals. But out of control inflammation or constant chronic low-grade inflammation is what leads to many diseases. And if your immune system is dysfunctional or weakened, the body doesn't know how to react. And that's when it creates what's called the cytokine storm, which we'll talk about. But ginger fundamentally inhibits inflammatory enzymes like COX-2, COX-2. That's what's involved if you ever take ibuprofen or Advil. You know, it goes and shunts COX-2. But the problem is it's a single molecule when you look at ibuprofen and Advil, but it also causes side effects, you know, if you use a lot of it for your kidneys. And then there's 5-LOX, another enzyme, and thereby ginger really modulates your immune system. Okay, it's really like shock absorbers. The second thing is ginger directly kills bacteria and fungi. You know, when I was growing up as a kid in the village in India, or when I came to the US, my mom and my grandmother, once a week, like on Fridays, we'd get a high potion of ginger. And I think it was a way that you took it regularly to really knock out the bacteria and the fungi. The other piece is ginger inhibits inflammatory cytokines. You know, those cytokines that cause inflammation in your body. We'll go over that. And for people with allergies, you know, allergic reactions and asthma systems, ginger really mitigates that. So those are the 4 key things we'll talk about. Okay, let me just say hello to people who are calling in from different parts of the country. We have people coming in from Thailand. We have people coming in from Texas. Hello. We have people coming in from Serbia, it looks like Maine, Texas again, Boston, Denmark, Illinois, Alberta, great to have you. Michael Gray, South Texas, Calgary, British Columbia, Boston, Florida, Mexico, South Dakota, watching Hillary's from Boston, Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Oklahoma, and so on. Anyway, great to have everyone on. In the interest of time, I'm just going to jump right into this. All of you know that our run for U.S. Senate is really a very unique way that we're running for Senate. We're actually educating people along the way. It's not just, hey, I'm going to do this or that. We're actually doing what we're talking about. And doing what we're talking about means really focusing in on freedom, which means standing up and making sure open debate takes place. If you notice, we've done many events. We don't go wearing masks. We don't go doing this nonsensical social distancing. People come together. We recognize that we are a human race, a civilization of people. All are interconnected. This whole thing about putting masks, social distancing, eventually putting bubble wrap around all of us is really has nothing to do with being human. What it really is, in many ways, being very individualized, thinking that I'm going to protect myself, you protect yourself. This is not, it has nothing to do with natural processes. The reality is we're all walking germ factories. We all are supposed to interact. We're supposed to build herd immunity that way. But their model is to make us machines and not really focus on the reality of how nature really operates. So in many ways, it's anti-nature, it's anti-human. So that's why our U.S. run for Senate is so important, because it's based on us having freedom of discourse. Today we had close to 100 people who show up in Mattapan on a hot day, on a Saturday when people could be doing other things. We talked about racism, we talked about health, but we fundamentally talked about the need for freedom. With freedom, you can practice science to get to truth, and with truth, we can really understand what are the real problems and the real solutions for the health of our body. And one of the real solutions here is to boost the immune system, because if we have a strong immune system, you have strong bodies, and you can really fight for freedom. Those of you who are in the United States and are U.S. citizens can support our campaign. You can donate, but as a part of my run for Senate, this is not about me just taking money from you. It never felt right, as many of you guys know. Part of when you support our campaign is I want to give you a book called System and Revolution, which really teaches you system science, which teaches you the fundamental principles of all systems in the universe, including your body. You learn that theory, and then I want to give you a tool called Your Body, Your System, and that tool helps you apply systems principles to understand your body as a system. But that's only the beginning. I want you to understand that so you could understand all the principles of all systems in the universe. Those of you who are outside of the United States and you want to get access to these tools, you can literally go right to yourbodyyoursystem.com, Your Body, Your System, and you can get access to those tools. But fundamentally, separate from the book, the tool actually helps you analyze your particular body, understand what kind of system you are. So the engineering approach here, which integrates with Eastern medicine nicely, is that your body has three sort of elements: the forces of movement, transport, the forces of conversion, like in your body, digestion, and the forces of structure and storage, like your frame, your bones. And by answering these questions, you can find what kind of system you are, denoted by the red dot. You can then answer another set of questions on what's going on in your life today, and you can find out how close you are to the red dot, which is you. In this case, that's the black dot. And then you can, the system actually helps you calculate, like a tutor, helps you figure out how you can use the inputs of food and supplements and exercise to bring you back to you. And that's what systems thinking is all about. Understand a complex system by these forces, understand what kind of situation you're currently in. You could be used for flying an airplane or a car or maintaining your house, and then figure out what inputs you need to do to get back into alignment. So I want to, as a part of our campaign, I want to teach all of you this approach, because then you can actually start applying these principles to political systems, economic systems, etc. All right. So please take advantage of that. And also, any of you out there who want to support our campaign by volunteering, you can email me, vashiva@vashiva.com. We have people we need to make phone calls. If you're in Massachusetts, you can support us doing standouts and going to events. But we have about 37 days left in the campaign. We have to win this campaign for all of us, particularly at this crucial point that we're at. So let's jump right into today's talk. As I mentioned, it's about ginger, as we talked about. Let's go right into it. So these are the main things that ginger does, and we'll come back to it. Those of you who want to learn the other things I'm up to or what my background is, you can go to V as in Victor, SHIVA.com. You'll hear the history of my being a scientist since I was a 14-year-old kid, inventing the first email system. And you can go to the Shiva for Senate website to learn more about our campaign. And you'll also learn, I run 3 different companies. One of the companies is focused on really, came out of one of my inventions, out of my MIT PhD work, how to model, M-O-D-E-L, using the computer, different types of chemical reactions in the body, or more specifically, different diseases. And that's what Cytosolve is all about. So to give you by way of analogy, when we build airplanes, we used to build airplanes hundreds of years ago or 100 years ago, we built an airplane, and then maybe we did some wind tunnel testing. That's what this diagram is over here. And then after that, we would put a pilot in. And if he died, he said, oh, gee whiz, he died. And if he succeeded, then we try to figure out why it worked, okay? But it was basically a trial and error. Today, that's not done. What we do is when we come up with a new design for an aircraft wing, we mine all the papers, we understand the physics, and we use the computer to actually, on the computer, model, or what I call in silico, which means on the computer, model the actual aircraft. We can try all different types of billions of different wing designs. And then out of those we think that work, then we test them in the wind tunnel, and we actually don't kill a lot of pilots anymore, okay? This is a process that takes place in the engineering sciences. And this is the technology that I created, Cytosolve, and I'll tell you why I did that. Because right now, the way we create a medicine is nowhere near how we were, do it for an airplane. It's not engineering. It's sort of shoot and miss, and if something succeeds, then we start explaining why. But fundamentally, the drug companies find a drug, or they think something works, they test it in a test tube, and then they test it, in animals, kill a lot of animals. And then if this 3 steps work, then they go to the FDA and they say, hey, I want to test it on humans. And then they do phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Those phases mean more and more humans are involved in the testing. Well, this process is quite inefficient, takes 13 to 15 years. You kill a lot of animals, and the stuff coming out of there at the end of that process has many side effects, okay? And that's why you can still sue pharma companies, and it's not done for the particular individual. And this is why year over year, the orange line pharmaceutical companies spend a ton of money in R&D, but they're not actually getting new drugs approved, because even the FDA is finding many of these drugs cause side effects, okay? So in my view, I've always felt that medicine didn't take an engineering approach like we've taken to building airplanes. It takes a very, basically you shoot a bunch of things. If something falls out, and if you mysteriously find something, great, and there's a lot of side effects. However, in 2003, as I've shared before, all of that changed. People realized after the Genome Project ended, as you can see from this graph, in 2003, the Genome Project ended, and it turns out the irony of the Genome Project was we find out we only have the same number of genes as a worm. We went into it, as you can see in the beginning part of this graph, we thought that we had close to about 100,000 genes in 93, because the thought was, oh, we're more complex than a worm, we must have more genes. Well, it turns out we only have 20,000 genes, and that's what a worm has. So this flipped biology on its head, and people realized we needed to take a systems approach. Systems approach means finding the interconnections. So the genes interact with proteins. So if we want to understand the whole human being, we have to interact all the way from the genes, the proteins, the cells, the tissues, to the organs. So it's a much more complex problem. And in 2003, one of the ideas, when I returned back to MIT to do my PhD, was, could you interconnect the system of the entire human cell? Could you mathematically, in fact, model the cell on the computer? Because if we could do that, we could eliminate animal testing. We could really use the computer to figure out all the potentials and really find out what works. And the idea was you would take these molecular pathways, which are pieces of the jigsaw puzzle in the literature. So for example, if you look at a disease like cancer, you find out, if you read all the tens of thousands of research papers, every research paper always says, oh, we discovered chemical A reacts with chemical B to get chemical C. They're called biological pathways. Now, if you could get all those pathways, interconnect them, and then convert them into mathematical models, you could use a computer to do stuff before killing animals and people. So that's what CytoSolve is. CytoSolve is a technology platform to model molecular mechanisms on the computer. And that's what I created. So, and we've now, after I did it for my PhD work, then I wrote a lot of papers, and it's a very cool technology. We use it to help a lot of the natural product companies figure out what works, what doesn't, and we're actually using it to discover new medicines. And I have a deep interest because of my background in natural medicine. So that's where we really use this. And what we're able to do, one of the processes, we can take all the papers in the field, get all the molecular pathways, analyze them, and really deliver a source of truth based on what's out there in science without cherry picking some of them. So if you go back to this concept of where you're using the computer to build an airplane, now think about you're using the computer to mine all the literature and model molecular pathways or diseases on the computer and then find what works. So for example, here we've taken all the papers having to do with inflammation and where the herb turmeric, the active ingredient being curcumin involved in inflammation, intersects. So you can see the outer cell wall, the inner cell wall, and you can see all the places curcumin interacts. This is about 6,000 scientific papers. Similarly, we can do that with resveratrol, which is the active ingredient in red grapes. And then we can figure out what happens when you combine them. And all of this we can do through simulation on the computer. So you can see here, we can then run simulation experiments. So the far right column is a biomarker, a cytokine. When it's high, you have inflammation. So first we have a high level of inflammation. We don't give curcumin and resveratrol, then we just give curcumin. You can see it drops from 0.15 to 0.05 because curcumin is an anti-inflammatory, but we just give resveratrol. It also drops, not as good, but then when we combine them, which is what we do when we eat food, you can see what happens here, where it gives the level, as you can see here, goes from 0.15 down to 0.03. But we're using less curcumin, less resveratrol, but it's what's called the combination effect, the synergistic effect. Okay, so that's the background on CytoSolve. So when we use CytoSolve to really look at all the information on ginger, first of all, some background. We find out it's one of the most commonly used dietary condiments in the world. I'm making some curry right now. After this, I'll go eat, ginger. I took fresh ginger and I mashed it and I put it in there. It's really a rhizome. It's not just a root, but it's the bulbs that go on the root. And it's the main portion of ginger that's consumed. And its medicinal uses dates back 5,000 years, China and Indian cultures. And the medicinal effects of ginger are attributed to compounds called gingerol, Gingerol, and we'll go through those. But overall, the composition of ginger is about 115 chemical compounds. Look, a pharmaceutical drug is one little chemical compound, but when you take an herb like ginger, it's got 115. Think about all the powerful synergies there. Like we just talked about curcumin and resveratrol. It also has minerals and vitamins and what are called gingerols. Relative to minerals, in 100 grams of ginger, you'll find about 88 grams of calcium, 174 grams of phosphorus, very important for the brain, 9.3 milligrams of manganese, a little bit of zinc, less than one milligram, iron, about 8 milligrams, copper, about half a milligram, and germanium. The other thing is there's some very important vitamins in ginger. Vitamin C, about 9.3 milligrams, and a lot of carotenoids, 79 milligrams. So what are gingerols? Gingerols are the things that make ginger. That's why it's called gingerols. 33 gingerol-related compounds. The four main ones are 6-gingerol, there's 8-gingerol, there's 10-gingerol, and there's 6-shogol, These are the different gingerols, and the reason they're different, if you can see, is where the OH group. So if you look at the hydroxy group here, you notice it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here it's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's at the 10th position from the end. This is 8 gingerols at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10th position, and so on. And this is 6 also. So there are 4 types of major gingerols that are the active components. And when you really broadly look at all the literature, gingerol has many, many effects related to immune health. You can see what it does. It has inflammatory, targets of gingerol. So ginger and its constituents really target certain compounds. So for example, they target inflammatory enzymes. They knock them out. They target inflammatory cytokines like interleukins, interferon gamma, and TNF alpha. TNF alpha, we've talked about a lot, is a very inflammatory cytokine. Transcription factors like NF-kappa beta, which are involved in cancer. Cell growth regulators like GOG1. Cell death regulators. Look, in cancer therapy, your cells, which are supposed to die, don't die. And that's called cell death. And there are at least 4 important chemicals involved in that: P53, BCL2, as you can see, survivin-1 and BAX. And gingerol actually goes and inhibits those. And then when cancer starts metastasizing, it starts doing a process called angiogenesis using a chemical called VEGF. That's over here. And gingerol also inhibits that. So you can see gingerol inhibits a lot of these processes. As you can go out here, it inhibits cyclooxygenase, IFN gamma, suppression of TNF alpha and NF kappa beta, activation of GO1, inhibition of VEGF, activation of BAX, inhibition of lipoxygenase, activation of P53, inhibition of interleukins, and inhibition of BCL2 and survivin. The point I'm making here is you don't need to know all that, but ginger has very powerful effects across a range of events involved in immune health, cancer, etc. And ginger exhibits the following biological effects. So those are the chemical effects, but first of all, it inhibits inflammatory processes, which affects the immune system. It's a neuroprotector, protects the brain. Anti-tumor effect. Hepatoprotective, protects the liver. Anti-obesity activities, okay? Protects this gut, gastroprotective effects. One of the nice uses of ginger ale, if you're ever nauseating or you feel like you have, you want to vomit or you have nausea, ginger's a great thing. Get a little bit of ginger ale. Anti-diabetic, antibacterial, and also photoprotective effects. Quick review before we jump into the important effects of ginger for boosting the immune system. What is the immune system? As I've talked about before, the old model of the immune system is a 2-box model, which means they only look at the fact that you have this innate immune system, which is the immune system consisting of cells in your eyes, your nose, your mucous membranes, and your gut, your skin, all the things that connect with the outer environment. That's when a virus or fungus or bacteria comes, that's the first thing it faces. And that innate immune system starts shooting everything non-specifically, okay? And then in the old model of the immune system, you also have the adaptive immune system. If that, after a virus goes through that, or a bacteria or fungi or parasite, or particularly in the case of viruses, your adaptive system kicks in and tries to create an antibody, more like a sharpshooter. Anyway, this is the old model of the immune system used to promote vaccines. And as you know, I'm not pro or anti-vaccine. My view is that giving everyone the same medicine doesn't work. One size does not fit all. But the reality is that as I presented at the National Science Foundation, I was asked to give the Prestige lecture about 6 months ago. And I said, look, this old model of the immune system isn't correct. The real model of the immune system is you have the innate and the adaptive. You also have the interferon system, which I've researched as a part of my PhD work and thereafter. The interferon system is a part of your immune system, which links the innate and the adaptive. And it's a part of your immune system which creates interferons, things that actually interfere not only with when you're exposed to a virus, but thousands of other viruses. So your body actually wants to get hit with a virus, and it gets strong by the creation of interferons. We also have the microbiome and the virome, all the gut bacteria, and we have about 60 trillion bacteria in our body. We have about 380 trillion viruses, as I've shared before. So we're a walking germ factory. We have about 6 trillion cells. So we have 10 times more viruses. We have bacteria in our body, and about 60 times more, or more than 60 times more, viruses. And that's called the microbiome and the virome. And that's connected to the neural system, which is our brain. The gut and the brain are connected. So the immune system is much more complex. As I've shared, one of the things that emerges out of this is that each one of us is a unique system. And what's right for you may not be right for me. So for the government dictating that everyone should take this medicine, or every kid should get these same vaccines is absurd. It's fake science, unfortunately. So that's the review. So let's talk about ginger. So gingerols, which are modulate the immune system through their anti-inflammatory properties. As I've shared before, when a virus and a pathogen comes to you, by the way, they're all around us. It's not that virus or the pathogen eats away your flesh, eats away your lungs, like the news media has presented. It's absolutely not true. When you have a dysfunctional immune system, when you have a weakened immune system, your own body's immune system goes haywire and it starts attacking you. So when I use the word modulate, these gingerols are like shock absorbers, like I've talked about these other foods. They modulate your immune system through their anti-inflammatory properties. That's number one. Ginger's essential oil also exhibits antimicrobial effects, which means actually can go kill bacteria and fungi. Ginger also alleviates allergy symptoms through stopping histamine release. And ginger also relieves asthma symptoms by inhibiting airway contraction. So these are 4 processes that are involved in immune health. So let's get into the molecular systems of this. So here's gingerol, right? That's that molecular structure that we're looking at. I think this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 6 gingerol. And what, a lot of research has been done on this. It's not just me, but when you distill all that research, what you find is, first of all, inflammation. If you have, that leads to disproportionate amount of immune response. If you have chronic inflammation going on, your body's immune system is disproportionate, it goes haywire. So what gingerols do is they inhibit enzymes like COX-2, which is, when you take Advil does the same thing, but Advil is a single molecule. It also can cause side effects, but ginger inhibits enzymes like COX-2 and 5-LOX. Now, COX-2 creates a very inflammatory molecule called PGE2. So gingerol inhibits COX-2 so it doesn't form PGE2, very much like what ibuprofen does. And it also inhibits 5-LOX, which creates LTB, which also causes inflammation. So that's on one side. But guess what else gingerol does? Gingerol inhibits a bunch of very important and powerful cytokines, which create the cytokine storm. One of them is IL-8, IL-1 beta, and TNF alpha. And gingerol also inhibits the transcription factor NF-kappa beta, which is responsible for transcribing a whole bunch of genes to create TNF alpha, IL-1 beta, and IL-8. So in summary, gingerol is like shock absorbers. It modulates your immune system so your body doesn't overreact, okay? Very powerful food. It does it in 2 ways, as you can see here. The other thing gingerol does not only modulate your immune system, but it actually has antimicrobial effects like vitamin D3 we talked about. Ginger, particularly the essential oil of ginger, literally goes and damages the quote-unquote wall or the membrane. It causes membrane disruption of bacteria and fungi, okay? Bacteria and fungi disrupts their cell walls or their membranes. And relative to fungus, it does the same thing. It also disrupts their membrane. So this is ginger essential oil. That's what the research shows. The other thing ginger does is those people have lots of allergies. The allergies come because your basophils release what's called histamines. And this is actually ginger. Sorry. This is this slide is a wrong slide. This is a slide I wanted to go to on asthma. Ginger, when you have asthma taking place, the gingerols actually come in, and when asthma takes place, a couple of things occur. When you, under asthmatic conditions, calcium 2 ions enter the airways, okay, your airways, enter the airway smooth muscle, ASM cells, and they cause contraction. So when people have asthma going on, the ASM smooth muscles are actually contracting because CO2 ions enter, as you're seeing here, okay? And that causes a series of reactions which causes contraction of your airways. And the extended contraction of the airway worsens the asthmatic symptoms. So the more and more it gets contracted, people start having problems breathing. So what does gingerol do? As you can see, gingerol right here inhibits. Gingerol comes in and inhibits. It prevents CO2 ion entry by inhibiting the calcium channels on the ASM cells. So gingerol literally blocks, so those CO2 cells, are inhibited from entering. And by that inhibition, gingerol inhibition of calcium channel leads to alleviation of the asthma symptoms, okay? Because it alleviates those asthma contractions. So sorry about the garlic. It's not, this slide is wrong, so X that out of your thing. We're really talking about gingerol's effects on the asthma symptoms. The other piece is, how much should you take? Well, according to research done in 2006, Schwertner et al., about 250 milligrams to 4.8 grams a day. Look, I use ginger in everything I do. Oops, this is wrong. Sorry, we were doing this earlier. Let me just change this here. This should be ginger. Very sorry. Let me go back up. So maintenance dose about 250 milligrams to about 408 grams. For pain benefits, we're under extreme pain, inflammatory pain, you're looking about 2 grams a day. That's black et al. What I do is, if I'm feeling inflammation, if I'm working out heavy, I will take ginger root. By the way, it's very important to take off the skin in traditional cultures, cut it and boil it in water and have ginger tea. Very, very valuable. For sugar control, we're looking at diabetes, you're looking about 1.6 grams or 1,600 milligrams per day. And for migraines, again, a lot of research done on this, you're looking about 250 milligrams single dose. And for nausea, if you're feeling ill, again, ginger ale, obviously you get it organic and without all the sugar, is 250 milligrams to 2 grams per day. Relative to the research, and you can share this with your friends and family, it's a well-researched herb, just like as I've shared with the others, about 12,260 research articles, 231 clinical trials, and nearly 90 years of research, 89 years of research on ginger. Again, I made a mistake here. This is ginger. Sorry about that. That's what happens when you're trying to do a lot of things. But anyway, please forgive me for that. But that's ginger. Okay. So you can see there's multiple health benefits. We have the dosages here, and it's a well-researched herb. Finally, to talk about from the Eastern or the engineering system standpoint, as many of you know, actually, let me go back to the slides here because I don't think I was sharing. Sorry about that. Let me just share those again for all of you at home. If you look here, we talked about the asthma aspects of ginger, where it constricts, where it stops blockage of CO2, calcium, and these are the different dosages for ginger. And then finally, we talked about it as about 12,260 research articles. When we look at it from a system standpoint, as I've shared with you, if I take a systems approach, and let me go back to this slide, which is online, which you can go to Your Body, Your System. As I've shared, when you look at the body as a system and you take an engineering systems approach, if you did a mapping using Your Body, Your System, you'll find out that your body has a certain set point. That's what the red dot is. And over here, you'll find out your body, when it's imbalanced, when it's ill or you're not feeling that great, that's the black dot. So in order to bring the black dot to the red dot, you can use different foods. So what you're doing is you're manipulating the forces of transport, motion, conversion, let's say digestion in the body, or storage, which is like memory storage, fat storage, etc. And so when you look at, from a systems approach, when you look at something like ginger, how does ginger affect it? So this is looking at it from an Eastern standpoint or a engineering system standpoint. First of all, ginger lowers transport, okay? So ginger lowers vata. So many times where people are feeling ill, you have a lot of vata. Vata is involved in flatulence, discomfort, gas. So ginger helps lower that. Fresh ginger also lowers conversion, okay? So if you have, digestive issues going on, the fresh ginger, very different. Fresh ginger lowers it, but the dry ginger increases digestion, okay? So this is a difference. Fresh ginger lowers, right? So if you have, stomach, you feel like something, you have acid or something like that, the fresh ginger lowers it, but the dry ginger increases digestion. And ginger also lowers kapha or storage, which is fat storage, okay? That's what this aspect means relative to diabetes. So in many ways, you can look at it from the Eastern standpoint or the Western standpoint. So in summary, ginger has 4 different effects. It reduces and inhibits inflammatory enzymes, COX-2 and 5-LOX, therefore controlling, the cytokine storm, and it also inhibits cytokines, inflammatory cytokines. And the other thing is ginger directly goes and kills bacteria and fungi, and ginger also mitigates allergic reactions and asthma symptoms. All right, there you go. So that's our talk today on ginger. So we've covered the power of going to the beach, negative ions. We've covered the value of green tea modulating the immune system. We've covered now garlic, onions, and ginger. You can use them in your diet. They're very healthy. As we talked about, the garlic and the onions have organosulfur compounds, and ginger really has those gingerols. So let me see if there's any questions. And by the way, thank you everyone for sending in those emails to vashiva@vashiva.com. We have them all in the pipeline coming in. Someone said, we're often told that cooking foods breaks down molecular structures. How does cooking affect herbs? It's a great question. Look, most traditional cultures didn't overheat things, okay? They did either slow cooking or steaming, meaning they modulated it so you didn't overcook the herbs, or you cooked them, in a certain portion that you extracted the maximum amount of value from them. My view is, there's the raw food diet people have done, which has its value, but ultimately I think lightly steaming, slow cooking is one of the best ways to really extract nutrients from the food. If you overcook foods, high heat, you're looking at things that you're actually damaging and denaturing the compounds. Someone said, what about holy basil and ashwagandha? We're going to be doing a talk on ashwagandha. Holy basil is called tulsi, very powerful effects for the brain, but we'll be doing both of those. By the way, if you want me to do them, remind me, vashiva@vashiva.com. How can I get ginger? I'm not sure, Tuti Hernandez. So where can you get ginger? Well, if you go to your store, you can buy powdered ginger, comes in a bottle. You can get fresh ginger, which looks like a root. And if you're going to use ginger, my recommendation is take the skin off, and then you can, if you have a mortar and pestle, pound it or cutting into small pieces. But those are the 2 ways you can get ginger. Sometimes you can actually take, this is called a dry ginger. You can get fresh ginger, or you leave it to dry, and then you mash it up, and that you can use in teas, etc. But very different effect. Fresh ginger and dry ginger have different effects. Someone says, what form should I consume? Well, look, if you consume the fresh ginger, it has different effects than the dry ginger. The dry ginger really increases digestive capabilities, right? Increases what's called digestion. So if you already have a lot of great digestive going on, good enzymes, be careful how much dry ginger you use. It's very powerful. It's very heating for the body, as we say in Chinese or Indian medicine. If you use the fresh ginger, it's cooling, but it won't have as much of a heating effect. It's valuable for, if you're doing it for, like nausea, digestion, those kind of things. I mean, not nausea and stomach issues. Next. Someone says fresh ginger is tea, Nanny, and will help strep throat bacteria. It is great. Yeah, as I said, as the research shows, when you take the ginger, it literally disrupts the cell walls of the bacteria. Ginger is very, very powerful when you start feeling, like someone said here, strep throat bacteria, but it really is an amazing antibacterial. Someone said, I use ginger in my smoothies. Wonderful. Again, remember, ginger heats the body. Someone says, do I recommend vitamin C packs, which includes ginger and turmeric? Look, vitamin C is very, very valuable. Obviously, if you're under serious stress, vitamin high dosage is valuable. Ginger and turmeric are both rhizomes, very valuable, for supporting the immune system. Okay. Well, anyway, it's around 10:45. People are talking about Can you cover Candida? Yes, please email me, vashiva@vashiva.com. We have a talk set up, but remind me, I'm looking at Candida and yeast growth. Someone just said oregano oil. We have we're going to be doing a talk on oregano oil. What else? Truth, freedom, and health. Anyway, thank you, everyone. So before I sign off tonight, everyone, again, remember, we have around 37 days left in our U.S. Senate campaign. Wherever you are, please tell people in Massachusetts, September 1st is the big election. Again, I'm running against 3 lawyers. I'm not a lawyer. In fact, I don't want to serve in the Senate more than 1 term. I want to just do 1 term for 6 years. It's a lot of time. And I'm doing it because I believe we need to fight for truth, freedom, and health. And I believe that the country, for Massachusetts in particular, is a center in many ways of science and technology. And why are lawyers running? Why shouldn't a scientist, why shouldn't an engineer, why shouldn't a working person like one of us be in there? So one of the key things is, the themes that's emerging of our campaign is beyond left and right, beyond black and white. It's time for all of us working people to unite for truth, freedom, and health, for Shiva for Senate. So everyone, get out there, support the campaign. If you want to donate, great. You'll get the book in Your Body, Your System. If you're out of the country, you can go right to yourbodyyoursystem.com and get it. You can volunteer, but please support the campaign. It's our campaign. It's your campaign. Thank you, everyone. Be well, be the light, and let's win this fight. Thank you. Thank you, everyone on Instagram. Thank